Okay guys, today we're going to talk about registration for next year, which is the whole process of you picking your classes, telling us what you want to take for the following school year. So what we've handed out to you are two things. One is your current transcript. That does include the grades that you received from first trimester of this year, so anything you've done up until this point through first trimester. And then you've also received a blank CRF form. Okay, CRF stands for course request form. So this is how you tell us what you're going to be taking for the following year. So the first thing we want to go over is your transcript and talk a little bit about what's on your transcript, things that you need to make a note of. So if you can take out a pen, and if you have a highlighter would be really helpful as well. But pull out your transcript. Obviously, you want to look at all the information on the top of the page, make sure it all looks correct. Obviously, your name, your ID number, your mailing address, phone number, all of those things should be correct. If for some reason there's something on there that's not correct, you can definitely highlight it, make a note of it, and we'll fix it in the computer. Then these are new transcripts. So if you remember, we changed to a new computer system, so this looks a little bit different than some of the transcripts you've seen in the past. But it does, in general, have all the same information. So if you look, it has your courses that you've taken by either semester for some of you, or for most of you, just in the trimester system. And each semester or trimester lists what classes you took, what your grades were in those classes, how many credits you've earned, and remember each class you take here is a 5-credit class, except for 6.5. So if you've done any 6.5 classes, you're going to see that that's a 2.5 credit class. And then on the bottom it tells you how many credits were attempted for that given semester or trimester, how many were completed, and then your GPA for that particular trimester or semester. So I want you to take a look at all of your semesters or trimesters. I want you to highlight anything that's a D or an F. So the first thing you should be doing is making note of any D's or F's on your transcript. Okay, it's the same thing that I'm going to do when I sit down with you and I have your transcript in front of me. We're going to talk a little bit about how repeating classes works and how you should kind of put that on your course request form for next year. When you get all the way to the bottom of all the classes that you've taken, then you're going to also see what you're currently enrolled in for trimester 2. Those should look pretty familiar to you. And then at this point, what you're scheduled for trimester 3. Okay, so you have an idea of what the classes you're going to complete for the rest of the year are. Then down at the bottom of your transcript, there's going to be a box that says GPA summary. That's your overall GPA, and for some of you, you're going to have two different ones. One that's an academic GPA, and then one that says unweighted. Okay, the reason that sometimes those are going to be different is if you take an AP class. If you never take an AP class in the 4 years that you're here, those GPAs are always going to be the same. Okay, but if you take an AP class 2 out of those 3 trimesters, because remember AP classes are all year, they're first, second, and third trimester, the 2 that are labeled AP, okay, and then usually there's a seminar, but the 2 that are not the seminar class, you're going to get a weighted grade for those classes. That means you're going to get a 5-point-A instead of a 4-point-A. So in that case, you're going to see your normal academic GPA includes the weighted grade, and then your unweighted GPA does not. Okay, everything that you take on campus goes into your GPA except for PE classes, specifically is one of them. So if you look through your courses and there's a little column there and you see there's a couple N's there, you'll see it under your PE classes, like a teacher assistant. That means that those classes do not get calculated into your academic GPA. Okay, everything else though that's on there does. Okay. If you've taken any kind of SAT or ACT, you might find that those scores are on your transcript. We still do post those on your transcript. But that pretty much covers everything that you're going to see on your transcript. So do you guys have any questions at all on what's on your transcript, what to look at, how to read it? Anything that we've missed? Go ahead.
What do honors classes do?
Okay, that's a great question. Honors classes do not get a weighted grade. Okay, so then kids say, well, then why would I take an honors class? Well, any honors class that you're going to take obviously is going to help prepare you to take advanced placement classes later on. even though you don't get a weighted grade for that class, obviously the colleges still understand that you're taking a very challenging class with challenging curriculum, and that does make a difference. Okay, and obviously, like for instance, if your hope is to get into AP English classes later on, you really need to be taking those honors English classes in your freshman and sophomore year to help prepare you to be successful in those classes later on. Okay, so they don't get weighted grades, but if you can handle the curriculum in those classes, obviously we're going to encourage you to take those classes. Good question. Go ahead.
What GPA do colleges look at, the weighted or unweighted?
Okay, that's another great question. Now, depending on what specific schools you're going to apply to, they may choose to calculate your GPA differently. But in general, with our UC schools and our CSU schools, which obviously those are the state schools in California that most of you guys end up applying to, they're going to take your GPA. They calculate a totally different GPA. What they're going to do is take all of your college prep, your A through G classes in your 10th grade year and your 11th grade year, and that's how they choose to calculate your GPA. So then you say, well, geez, that's totally different. How do I calculate that grade? That GPA. So what you're going to look at is you're going to look at anything you took in 10th and 11th grade, and you're going to look. And remember how I pointed out that N column was that very, very first column, and you see a couple N's where you took PE. Then the next column, you're going to see some P's. Okay? Any place where you see a P next to your course, that means that that class is a college prep course, that it's an A through G course. Okay? You might also see if it was an AP class, it'll have an A next to it. If it was an honors class, it'll have an H next to it. But any of those classes means that those go into your college GPA. So if you would like to calculate your college GPA, like let's say you're going into your senior year and you want to see how you're doing right now, you can take all of those classes with P's and figure out your college GPA. Now, what if you're planning on applying to state schools outside of California or private schools or things like that? In general, those schools will probably take your college prep classes from 9th, 10th, and 11th. But you'll have to look at how specific schools do calculate the GPA. But CSUs and UCs do 10th and 11th grade A through G classes. Okay. Any other questions? Those were good questions. Go ahead.
So if you do get a D or F in a previous class, but you made it up, will the colleges see that D and F in the previous class, or do they make a class?
Okay, another great question. So remember how I asked you to highlight all of your D's and F's? The reason that I want you to do that is obviously if you got an F in a class, you didn't earn credit for it. Okay, you do not earn credit for F's. Now, do you earn credit for D's? Yes. Do D's get you into college? No. Okay, so for high school graduation purposes, you're okay with a D. But if you're planning on applying to any four-year universities, you really, really have to make up those D's. So what happens is when you retake the class, and that's what when we talk about CRFs, we're going to talk about how to put that on there, that you're repeating a class. But when you repeat the class, the new grade is the one that's going to go into your college GPA, and the old grade is going to come out of your college GPA. It's still on your transcript though. So some kids think, oh, well, I took the class. Why does it still say I had an F my freshman year? Well, because you did. It's never going to be taken off of your transcript. So when you submit your transcript to the colleges, they're still going to see whatever that initial grade was. But when they calculate the college GPA, they're going to see what the new grade was. Now, it has to be the exact same class that you're repeating. So sometimes a kid will take like APEC, for instance, and maybe they get a D in the first trimester, and then they want to make it up with world history. You can do that, and it might be the best scenario for you to make it up in that way, but then the APEC grade is still going to go into the GPA, and the world history grade is going to go into the GPA, because it was not the exact same class. Okay, does that make sense? So, we still need to kind of make decisions about what's best for you. Maybe making up the APEC isn't ideal for you, and maybe we choose not to do that. But in order to actually replace the grade in the GPA, it does have to be the exact same class. So that means a class at Poway Unified School District. So you can't go to community college or something like that and make up a D. Okay, and more questions on your transcript. Okay, those were all really good questions. So keep thinking of other questions that you have, and then we're going to switch gears just a little bit and talk a little bit about your actual course request form. Okay, this is really your worksheet. So this is your chance to really start playing around with what classes you want to take in the following year. And we try to give you some guidelines of what you should be filling out. Okay, so if you notice, there's 15 spots on the course request form. That's because if you're taking, in the trimester system, you're taking 5 classes each trimester for a total of 15 classes for the year. Okay? Now, as you know, you don't necessarily have to take 5 classes each trimester. A lot of you might choose to take a late start or an early release, meaning you don't start till second period or you're done after fourth period. You still have to tell us that on the course request form. So even if you're only planning on taking 4 classes each trimester, you're going to tell us on here that you want a late start or you want an early release. So every single student has to have 15 classes listed. Okay? So if you look, we've broken it down into, funny, the A through G requirements to get you thinking about what are the classes that you take that are going to help you to stay eligible for college. So if you see the first 2 lines are for social science, the next 2 lines are for English, the next 2 lines are for math, and then the next 2 lines are for science. So those are the 4 core academic classes that most of you are going to always take every year. And then we put down at the bottom world language. Okay, because world language is something that you also need for college. How many years of world language do you need for college?
4.
2 years of world language. So you need at least a 1, 2, 3, and a 4 of any language, whether it's Filipino, Spanish, or French. Okay. The colleges highly recommend, though, that you do at least 3 years. So we're going to also encourage you to try to get that 3rd year of language in. Okay. And then you'll see at the bottom it's going to say English, elective, or the AP part of your seminar of your AP class, or any, or late start, early release. Okay. So even though there are only 2 spots up here for your core classes, you have to remember that if you're taking an AP class, it's going to take all 3 spots in your schedule. You also have the option of what we call roll in both math and language. So you can try to take 3 trimesters of those classes as well, depending on where you fall on our continuum. So this kind of gives you your starting point. If you turn the page over on the back has kind of a guide to help you on what you're going to need, whether you're a 10th grader, an 11th grader, or a 12th grader. Okay, so for 9th graders, this is the first time that you're filling this out for high school. So what do you need to do? Well, next year is the first year that you're going to be able to take a history class. Okay, you have to by grade level. So in 10th grade, you're going to be choosing between either world history or APEC, which is AP European Civilization. Okay. So what we always get asked is, well, how do I know? I think I want to take APEC, but I'm not really sure. This is the time where you really need to sit down with your current teachers and have conversations with them about what makes sense for you, okay? They know you. They know how you do in classes. They know your work ethic, okay? So your current teachers are your best resource to help you make really smart choices for yourself for next year. You know what you're getting yourself into when you take an honors or an AP class if you also have those conversations with the teachers. They know what it takes for you to be successful in there. You may have the ability, but maybe you're doing sports and you're working and you have all these other things going on. You have to make a decision about whether you're going to have the time that it takes to be successful in there. Okay, so for 9th graders, we really want you to talk to your English teacher because obviously you haven't had a history class yet. So if you're considering honors humanities or APEC, you need to talk to your current English teacher for this year. They're going to help you decide whether or not you qualify for those classes, whether it's a good idea to take one, none, or in some cases, a few cases, maybe both of them. Okay. But same thing really just in general for the entire school. We really want you to have conversations with your current teachers. Even in math, I know math sequencing sometimes can be kind of confusing. So you don't know if you should be on the honors track or not, or should I try to take calculus, pre-calculus, or should I go into college algebra? Those are conversations that make sense to have with your math teacher. Okay. Let's see. So going back to the back of the form. You have to, this box kind of gives you some extra notes.